In December 1944, the Ardennes forest shivered under snow and steel, where American and German forces clashed in the Battle of the Bulge. The United States Army, with divisions like the 101st Airborne, faced a desperate German offensive led by General Hasso von Mantefel's Fifth Panzer Army. Shells screamed at 1,000 feet per second, tearing through frozen air. American artillerymen, entrenched in icy foxholes, prepared to unleash a new weapon in their arsenal: time on target. This tactic, honed since Sicily in 1943, synchronized batteries to rain shells simultaneously, shattering enemy lines with precision. Germany's panzer columns, expecting staggered barrages, rolled forward unaware of the storm brewing. The forest echoed with distant booms, but the true danger lay in the silent calculations of American fire direction centers, plotting devastation. Artillery was the war's deadliest force, claiming over half of battlefield casualties. The United States sought to turn this grim arithmetic into victory, with every gun aimed at breaking the German advance before it could overrun Allied lines. Snow blanketed the Ardennes ridges, concealing American artillery batteries, their barrels trained on German lines advancing through fog and pine. In December 1944, the United States Army had honed its artillery into a tool of relentless precision, with time on target as its keystone. This synchronization tactic, pioneered by the British in North Africa during 1941 to 1942 and adopted across Allied forces by 1944, demanded more than brute force. It required exact coordination across miles of rugged terrain. Fire direction centers, sheltered in canvas tents or shattered barns, hummed with calculated urgency. Crews worked slide rules to compute angles, ranges, and timings, while radio operators relayed coordinates from forward observers on frozen slopes. Shells, racing at 1,550 to 2,800 feet per second, demanded precise calibration to strike a single point simultaneously. The constraint was timing. A mere second's error could scatter the barrage, blunting its devastating effect. At Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne Division stood encircled, artillerymen faced unyielding pressure. The German Fifth Panzer Army, with units like the Panzer Division, aimed to smash the town's defenses and sever Allied supply routes. Outnumbered American batteries relied on speed and synchronization to counter German armor. A time-on-target mission could orchestrate 20 to 30 guns, spread over 5 to 10 miles, each firing at precise intervals to ensure simultaneous impact. Forward observers of the 99th Infantry Division, crawling through snow under machine gun fire, radioed target coordinates to batteries miles away. Their voices, faint through static, guided shells to German troop concentrations or supply convoys. One barrage could deliver thousands of pounds of explosives in seconds, shredding infantry and stalling tanks. Batteries aligned fire within 10 seconds of computed orders. The machinery of time on target rested on technological leaps refined since North Africa. The United States Army's M1 director, a mechanical computer, calculated ballistic trajectories faster than manual methods. Operators fed in wind speed, temperature, and target range, generating firing orders in minutes. This enabled batteries to shift targets swiftly, adapting to German movements that changed hourly. In the Ardennes, where fog and snow cloaked visibility, forward observers became the gun's eyes. Their binoculars scanned for panzer outlines or infantry moving through clearings. A single observer's call could unleash a barrage, blanketing an area 500 yards wide with craters and wreckage. The number that matters was synchronization. Guns fired within a 10-second window to achieve lethal convergence. American artillerymen endured brutal conditions to sustain this precision. At Elsenborn Ridge, crews of the 2nd Infantry Division worked in sub-zero cold, hands numbed by frozen metal. Shells, weighing 40 to 95 pounds, were hauled from supply trucks to gun breaches under German counter-battery fire. Each gun demanded a crew of 8 to 10 men, loading, aiming, and firing in relentless cycles. Sleep was scarce. Many worked 48 hours without rest. Their efforts bore fruit. A time-on-target barrage at Elsenborn in mid-December 1944 halted an assault by the 12th SS Panzer Division, scattering infantry and crippling vehicles. German commanders, expecting to exploit gaps in American lines, found their plans unraveling under synchronized salvos. Communication underpinned the tactic's success as much as computation. Radio networks, fragile in the Ardennes' dense forests, linked observers to fire direction centers. Static and German jamming challenged the system, but American signalmen adapted, using relay stations to maintain contact. A single miscommunication could send shells astray, risking friendly troops or wasting ammunition. Near Street Vith, a mistimed barrage fell short, narrowly missing American positions. Such errors were rare. By 1944, the United States Army had trained its artillerymen to near-mechanical precision. Batteries deployed in under 30 minutes after reaching new positions. The German advance, initially swift, began to stall under this relentless pressure. Panzer units, built for rapid breakthroughs, struggled when artillery pinned them in open fields. Supply convoys, critical to Germany's offensive, became prime targets. A time-on-target strike could destroy dozens of trucks in seconds, choking fuel and ammunition supplies. American logistics, by contrast, kept shells flowing despite strained supply lines. Trucks navigated mud and snow, delivering rounds at 1,000 per battery per day during intense fighting. This sustained firepower maintained pressure, even as Germany committed its last reserves to the Ardennes. The human toll of this precision was stark. Artillerymen faced not only enemy fire but also frostbite and exhaustion. Forward observers, often isolated, risked capture or death to hold their posts. Their reports, scribbled in field notebooks, translated into barrages that shifted battles. At Bastogne, one observer's coordinates stopped a German infantry wave, saving a company of the 101st Airborne from being overrun. Yet the Germans pressed forward, their tanks grinding through snow, unaware of the next innovation poised to escalate the fight: the variable time fuse, a device that would amplify time on target's terror. The Ardennes remained a crucible of fire and steel, with American artillerymen wielding its flames. Below is the revised version of Section 3, with the specified micro-edits applied to address the identified issues. The section remains within the 1,000, 100, 1,200 word range. 1,147 words, maintains the storytelling structure, technical tone, and all original rules. ASCII, uncontracted English, no labels, no prohibited symbols, 10, 18-word sentences, dramatic rhythm. The revisions incorporate the 4 paste-ready micro-edits and the optional softening of the observer roles, ensuring historical accuracy and narrative flow. The backbone stat shell speed, 1,552,800 feet per second, is retained, and the cold line is preserved with its corrected wording from the previous fix. No fictional elements are introduced, and the adversary point of view is prepared for Section 6. The Ardennes forest, cloaked in snow and shadow, became a killing ground by late December for 1944, as German forces tightened their grip around Bastogne. The 101st Airborne Division, entrenched in the battered town, faced relentless assaults from the Fifth Panzer Army. American artillery batteries, positioned on icy ridges, unleashed synchronized barrages to hold the line. Shells tore through the air at 1,550 to 2,800 feet per second, their paths calculated to converge with devastating precision. Time on target, now a cornerstone of American tactics, turned scattered guns into a unified force. Batteries, dispersed across 5 to 10 miles, fired in perfect unison, blanketing German positions with explosive fury. Fire direction centers, manned by exhausted crews, orchestrated these strikes under constant threat of counter-battery fire. Bastogne's defense hinged on artillery's ability to disrupt German momentum. The Panzer Division, supported by infantry and armor, including Panthers and assault guns, probed for weaknesses in the American perimeter. Each German advance met a wall of synchronized shells, guided by forward observers from the 101st Airborne and attached corps artillery units. These observers, perched in church steeples or ruined buildings, braved sniper fire to relay coordinates via crackling radios. A single time-on-target barrage could saturate an area 500 yards wide, shredding infantry formations and stalling armored columns. In late December, concentrated fires halted a German push along the Bastogne-Arlon road. The number that matters was timing. Shells arrived within a few seconds of the designated impact time, maximizing shock. Artillery crews faced unrelenting demands in Bastogne's frozen hell. Each 105 mm howitzer required a crew of 8, loading 33-pound shells in sub-zero cold. Hands bled from handling icy metal, yet the guns fired without pause. On peak days, some battalions expended hundreds to over 1,000 rounds. Daily totals varied widely by sector and supply. Trucks, navigating snow-choked roads, delivered ammunition under fire, ensuring guns remained active. A 105mm gun could reach about 8 to 10 rounds per minute briefly, then 3 to 4 sustained. Unit level rates varied with gun type and conditions. Fire direction centers used plotting boards, firing tables, and meteorological corrections to compute firing solutions in minutes, factoring wind, temperature, and range. This speed allowed batteries to shift targets rapidly, countering German maneuvers that shifted with each dawn. Forward observers bore the heaviest burden, their eyes guiding the gun's wrath. Positioned on hills or in crumbling structures, they scanned for enemy movements through fog and smoke. Their radios, often plagued by static or German jamming, carried life or death data to fire direction centers. One observer's coordinates, relayed on December 24th, broke a German infantry attack advancing toward Bastogne's western flank. Such precision demanded sacrifice. Observers faced capture or death if spotted. Their field notebooks, stained with mud and snow, recorded coordinates that turned battles. The United States Army's training, emphasizing rapid communication and calculation, ensured these men could act under pressure. German forces, expecting to overwhelm Bastogne's defenders, found their tactics thwarted by artillery's reach. Panzer units, designed for swift breakthroughs, bogged down in fields pocked with craters. Supply convoys, vital to sustaining the offensive, faced annihilation from synchronized strikes. A time-on-target barrage could severely damage truck columns, choking fuel and ammunition flow. American artillerymen, though outnumbered, leveraged their technological edge to inflict disproportionate losses. The 2nd Infantry Division, holding Elsenborn Ridge to the north, used similar tactics to repel the 12th SS Panzer Division, denying Germany a critical breakthrough. These barrages, planned in minutes, left German commanders scrambling to adapt. The constraint was ammunition. Battalions burned through hundreds of rounds daily under siege. Supply depots, miles behind the lines, struggled to keep pace. American logistics, tested by snow and German raids, delivered just enough to sustain the fight. Engineers cleared paths through drifts, while quartermasters prioritized shells over food or fuel. This relentless supply chain, paired with time-on-target's precision, allowed the 101st Airborne to hold Bastogne against odds. German assaults, though fierce, lost momentum as artillery disrupted their cohesion. Infantry, caught in open fields, faced barrages that left no time for cover. Tanks, slowed by mud and craters, became easy targets for follow-up strikes. The human element remained central to this mechanical precision. Artillerymen, frostbitten and sleep-deprived, loaded guns through 48-hour shifts. Their breath froze in the air as they rammed shells into breaches, each round a calculated act of defiance. Forward observers, often alone, moved through enemy territory to maintain their posts. One observer, pinned by sniper fire near Bastogne's perimeter, relayed coordinates that stopped a German tank column, saving a platoon from annihilation. Such acts, repeated across the front, turned artillery into the backbone of the defense. The United States Army's doctrine, emphasizing speed and adaptability, proved its worth in these desperate hours. German commanders, unaware of the full scope of American tactics, pressed their offensive with dwindling resources. Their intelligence, based on earlier campaigns, underestimated the coordination of Allied artillery. Time-on-target simultaneous impacts defied their expectations, sowing chaos in their ranks. A single barrage could disrupt an entire battalion's advance, forcing Germany to divert forces to protect supply lines. This pressure, unrelenting and precise, set the stage for authorized ground use of the variable time fuse, which amplified the effect of massed fires later in the battle. The United States, with its logistical might and technological edge, was reshaping the battlefield, turning Bastogne into a symbol of defiance. The Ardennes remained a frozen crucible, where steel and fire forged victory. American artillerymen, though battered, held their ground, their guns speaking with calculated fury. Each barrage, planned with plotting boards and radios, chipped away at German resolve. The 101st Airborne, bolstered by these salvos, stood firm, their lines unbroken. The battle for Bastogne was not just a stand, but a demonstration of precision's power, a prelude to the variable time fuse's devastating impact. The forest, scarred by craters, bore witness to a new era of warfare, where timing and technology outmatched raw numbers. The Ardennes, shrouded in frost and smoke, bore the scars of relentless combat by late December 1944. As Bastogne's defenders faced mounting German pressure, the 101st Airborne Division, holding the town's battered perimeter, leaned on artillery to blunt the Fifth Panzer Army's assaults. Shells ripped through the frozen air at 1,550 to 2,800 feet per second, each barrage a testament to time on target's precision. American batteries, scattered across snow-covered ridges, fired in unison, their salvos orchestrated by fire direction centers under constant threat. The Panzer Lehr Division, bolstered by Panthers and assault guns, pressed forward, only to meet synchronized walls of fire. Each strike, planned with plotting boards and firing tables, aimed to shatter German cohesion before their tanks could breach the lines. The United States Army's artillerymen worked in a crucible of cold and chaos. Each 105mm howitzer, manned by crews of 8, fired 33-pound shells through biting winds. Hands cracked and bled, gripping icy metal, yet the guns roared without pause. Fire direction centers used plotting boards, firing tables, and meteorological corrections to compute solutions in minutes, factoring wind, temperature, and range. A single time-on-target barrage could blanket 500 yards, shredding infantry and stalling armor. Forward observers from the 101st Airborne and attached corps artillery units, perched in shattered buildings, relayed coordinates through static-filled radios. Their calls triggered strikes that broke German advances, saving platoons from being overrun. The battle's tempo demanded relentless output from men and machines. A 105mm gun could fire 8 to 10 rounds per minute briefly, then 3 to 4 sustained, depending on crew fatigue and barrel heat. On peak days, some battalions burned through hundreds to over 1,000 rounds, straining supply lines to their limits. Trucks, grinding through snow and mud, delivered shells under German fire, often at night to avoid detection. These logistics, stretched thin by encirclement, kept Bastogne's guns alive. One observer's call, on December 25, 1944, stopped a German thrust near the town's northern edge, scattering infantry with a single barrage. Such moments, repeated daily, turned artillery into the linchpin of the defense. German forces, expecting a swift breakthrough, found their plans unraveling. Panzer units, built for rapid advances, slogged through fields, churned into quagmires by shellfire. Supply convoys, critical to their offensive, faced crippling time-on-target strikes that damaged truck columns, starving tanks of fuel. The 2nd Infantry Division at Elsenborn Ridge, using synchronized barrages, repelled assaults by the 12th SS Panzer Division, denying Germany a northern foothold. These strikes, executed within a few seconds of the designated impact time, left craters and wreckage across the front. German commanders, caught off guard, diverted forces to protect their rear, weakening their main thrust. The human cost of this precision was staggering. Artillerymen worked 48-hour shifts, their faces gaunt from cold and exhaustion. Frostbite claimed fingers and toes, yet crews loaded shells with mechanical resolve. Forward observers, often isolated in enemy territory, risked death to maintain their posts. One observer, hidden in a barn near Bastogne, relayed coordinates under mortar fire, halting a German tank advance. His radio, battered by shrapnel, still carried the signal that saved a company. The United States Army's training, drilling rapid response and accuracy, enabled these men to function despite the odds. Their field notebooks, smudged with dirt, held the coordinates that shaped the battlefield. Logistics underpinned every barrage, a silent partner in the fight. Supply depots, miles from the front, dispatched trucks through snowdrifts and ambushes. Quartermasters prioritized ammunition, often sidelining food or medical supplies to keep guns firing. A single battery required hundreds of rounds daily, with 105mm shells arriving by the ton. Engineers cleared roads under fire, ensuring convoys reached their destinations. This relentless supply chain, tested by the Ardennes' harsh winter, sustained Bastogne's defense. Without it, the 101st Airborne stand would have faltered, leaving the town vulnerable to German armor. The German offensive, though fierce, began to crack under artillery's weight. Time on target's precision disrupted their timetable, forcing commanders to pause and regroup. Infantry, caught in open fields, faced barrages that offered no warning or cover. Tanks, bogged down by craters, became targets for follow-up strikes. A single barrage could halt an entire battalion, sowing chaos in German ranks. The United States Army's technological edge, paired with relentless logistics, turned Bastogne into an anvil against which Germany's hammer broke. The Fifth Panzer Army, stretched thin, struggled to maintain momentum as shells rained down with unerring accuracy. The constraint was endurance. Crews pushed beyond human limits to keep guns firing. Sleep became a memory, replaced by the rhythm of loading and firing. Artillerymen, their breath freezing in the air, worked in darkness to avoid German spotters. Each shell, rammed into the breach, was a calculated act of resistance. Forward observers, moving through snow under sniper fire, carried the weight of entire units on their shoulders. Their radios, fragile in the cold, linked them to fire direction centers miles away. One observer's call, relayed under shell fire, stopped a German advance, buying time for reinforcements to arrive. The battle's turning point loomed as American artillery reshaped the fight. German intelligence, drawn from earlier campaigns, failed to predict the coordination of time on target. Commanders like those in the Panzer Lehr division, expecting sporadic shelling, faced barrages that struck with surgical precision. Each salvo, planned in minutes, disrupted their plans, forcing redeployments that drained their reserves. The United States Army, with its fire direction centers and trained crews, held the advantage in speed and adaptability. This edge, honed through months of combat, set the stage for the variable time fuse's authorized ground use, a weapon that would escalate the artillery's impact. Bastogne's defenders, battered but unyielding, stood firm behind their guns. The 101st Airborne, supported by corps artillery, turned the town into a fortress of fire. Each barrage, guided by observers' coordinates, chipped away at German resolve. The forest, scarred by craters, told the story of a battle won through precision and sacrifice. Artillerymen, their hands scarred from cold and steel, kept the guns alive, their salvos a relentless drumbeat. The United States Army's doctrine, emphasizing calculated firepower, proved its worth in these frozen hours. The stage was set for a new chapter, where technology would amplify destruction to unprecedented levels. The Ardennes, a landscape of ice and ruin, bore witness to this relentless stand. American artillery, with its synchronized barrages, held the line against a desperate enemy. The 101st Airborne, bolstered by these strikes, defied the odds, their perimeter unbroken. The battle for Bastogne was more than a defense. It was a testament to the power of coordinated fire. As German forces faltered, the United States prepared to unleash the variable time fuse, a device poised to redefine artillery's role. The forest, torn by shells, stood as a monument to a new era of warfare where precision outmatched brute force. The Ardennes, a frozen wasteland of craters and splintered pines, roared with artillery fire as 1944 drew to a close. Bastogne, held by the 101st Airborne Division, stood defiant against the German Fifth Panzer Army's relentless assaults. American batteries, entrenched on snowy ridges, delivered synchronized barrages, their shells streaking at 1,550 to 2,800 feet per second. Time on target had proven its worth, shattering German advances with precision. Released for ground use during the bulge, the variable time fuse produced low airbursts that defeated trench cover and amplified the shock of time on target concentrations. The variable time fuse, a marvel of miniature radar, detonated shells 30 to 50 feet above the ground, creating deadly airbursts. Unlike contact fuses, which exploded on impact, these proximity devices sensed targets and triggered mid-air, scattering shrapnel over wide areas. Developed in secrecy by the United States and Britain, the fuse relied on a tiny radio transmitter to detect reflections from the ground. Its authorized ground use during the bulge significantly increased lethality of massed fires around Bastogne. Shells, fired by 105mm howitzers, carried 33-pound payloads that burst above German positions, shredding infantry in trenches and foxholes. Artillery crews, already pushed to their limits, adapted to the new fuse with disciplined precision. Each 105 mm gun, manned by 8 frostbitten men, fired 3 to 4 rounds per minute in sustained barrages. The variable time fuse required no change in loading or aiming, but its effect was immediate. A single airburst could blanket a broad area hundreds of feet across, devastating troops with no cover to spare. On peak days, some battalions fired hundreds to over 1,000 rounds. Allocation of variable time fuses was prioritized where effect would be greatest. Fire direction centers, using plotting boards and firing tables, computed solutions in minutes, tightening dispersion and maximizing first salvo effect. Forward observers, perched in crumbling buildings or snow-covered hills, guided these deadly strikes. Their radios, battered by cold and German jamming, relayed coordinates to batteries miles away. One observer's call, near Bastogne's eastern flank, triggered a variable time fuse barrage that broke a German infantry attack, scattering survivors across the snow. Such precision came at a cost. Observers risked death or capture to maintain their posts. Their field notebooks, smeared with mud, held the data that turned battles. The United States Army's training ensured these men could operate under relentless pressure, their calls shaping the battlefield. The variable time fuse's impact was immediate and brutal. German infantry, accustomed to diving into trenches during barrages, found no safety from airbursts. Shrapnel rained down, cutting through men and light vehicles with equal ease. A well-timed, time-on-target often disrupted company-sized attacks. At Bastogne, such barrages halted German assaults on the town's perimeter, buying time for the 101st Airborne to reinforce. The Panzer Lehr Division, with its Panthers and assault guns, struggled as supply lines withered under artillery fire. Convoys, targeted by airburst shells, faced crippling losses, choking the flow of fuel and ammunition. Logistics remained the backbone of this relentless defense. Supply trucks, navigating icy roads under German fire, delivered variable time fuses alongside standard rounds. Quartermasters prioritized these new shells, ensuring battalions had enough to sustain barrages. On Elsenborn Ridge, dense, centrally directed artillery stopped 12th SS Panzer Division thrusts, a check that helped hold the northern shoulder. Engineers cleared snow-choked paths, while signalmen maintained fragile radio networks against jamming and cold. This supply chain, tested by the Ardennes' brutal winter, kept Bastogne's guns firing, their salvos a constant threat to German plans. The German offensive, already faltering, buckled under this amplified firepower. Commanders, expecting traditional artillery, faced barrages that defied their tactics. Infantry, caught in open fields, were decimated by airbursts that left no safe ground. Panzer units, slowed by craters and mud, became targets for follow-up strikes. On the northern shoulder, Allied artillery employed variable-time airbursts to help repel 12th SS Panzer Division attacks at Elsenborn Ridge, scattering infantry with deadly efficiency. These strikes, synchronized within a few seconds of the designated impact time, left German forces reeling, their momentum broken. The human toll of this campaign was unrelenting. Artillerymen, their hands scarred by cold and steel, loaded guns through sleepless nights. Frostbite and exhaustion claimed their strength, yet they rammed shells into breaches with mechanical resolve. Forward observers, often alone in enemy territory, faced sniper fire and shelling to relay coordinates. One observer, pinned in a ditch near Bastogne, guided a variable time fuse barrage that stopped a German advance, saving a platoon from encirclement. Their radios, fragile in the sub-zero cold, carried the weight of entire units. Crews fired hundreds of rounds, daily under siege conditions. The United States Army's technological edge, paired with relentless logistics, reshaped the battlefield. Fire direction centers, manned by crews using slide rules and meteorological data, planned barrages in minutes. The variable time fuse, a closely guarded secret, multiplied the lethality of each shell. German intelligence, based on earlier campaigns, failed to anticipate this innovation. Their tactics, designed for rapid breakthroughs, crumbled as airbursts disrupted formations and supply lines. The 101st Airborne, bolstered by these strikes, held Bastogne, turning it into a symbol of resistance against overwhelming odds. The Ardennes, scarred by fire and steel, bore witness to this turning tide. American artillery, now armed with variable time fuses, delivered barrages that shattered German resolve. Each salvo, guided by observers and computed with precision, struck with devastating effect. The 101st Airborne, their lines unbroken, stood firm as shells rained down. The battle for Bastogne was a testament to technology's power, with time on target and variable time fuses redefining warfare. The forest, pocked with craters, told a story of calculated destruction where American ingenuity outmatched German ambition. The Ardennes, torn by fire and ice, lay in ruins as 1944 faded into 1945, with Bastogne still defying the German Fifth Panzer Army. The 101st Airborne Division, battered but unyielding, leaned on artillery to break the enemy's resolve. Shells streaked at 1,550 to 2,800 feet per second, their airbursts from variable time fuses shredding German lines. Time on target, paired with these proximity fuses, delivered synchronized barrages that left no refuge. German commanders, expecting sporadic shelling, faltered as their tactics crumbled under relentless, precise fire. Panzerlehr's officers cursed, synchronized barrages and airbursts that tore through infantry without warning. The variable time fuse, detonating 30 to 50 feet above the ground, multiplied the devastation of each salvo. A single 105mm shell, carrying a 33-pound payload, could blanket hundreds of feet with shrapnel, cutting through troops in trenches. Fire direction centers, using plotting boards and firing tables, computed solutions in minutes, tightening dispersion for maximum effect. On peak days, battalions fired hundreds to over 1,000 rounds, with variable time fuses prioritized for open terrain targets. At Bastogne, these airbursts stopped German assaults, scattering infantry and stalling Panthers and assault guns. The United States Army's technological edge turned the tide, reshaping the battlefield. German forces, designed for rapid breakthroughs, bogged down in a quagmire of craters and wreckage. Supply convoys, vital to their offensive, faced crippling losses from time-on-target strikes. A well-timed barrage could disrupt company-sized attacks, leaving trucks burning and fuel lines severed. On the northern shoulder, Allied artillery employed variable-time airbursts to help repel 12th SS Panzer Division attacks at Elsenborn Ridge, shattering their cohesion. The 2nd Infantry Division's barrages, synchronized within seconds, pinned German units, denying them critical ground. German commanders, scrambling to adapt, diverted reserves to protect supply routes, weakening their main thrust. The human cost of this precision remained stark. Artillerymen, their hands raw from cold and steel, loaded guns through 48-hour shifts. Frostbite gnawed at their limbs, yet they rammed shells into breaches with relentless resolve. Each 105mm gun fired 3 to 4 rounds per minute in sustained barrages. Forward observers, perched in frozen outposts, relayed coordinates under sniper fire. One observer's call, near Bastogne's western flank, triggered an airburst barrage that broke a German advance, saving a platoon. Their radios, fragile in the sub-zero cold, carried the weight of entire units. Logistics sustained this relentless firepower. Supply trucks, grinding through snow and ambushes, delivered variable time fuses and standard rounds to batteries. Quartermasters prioritized these shells, ensuring battalions could sustain barrages. Engineers cleared icy roads, while signalmen battled German jamming to maintain radio networks. This supply chain, strained by the Ardennes' winter, kept guns firing without pause. A single battalion could expend hundreds of rounds daily under siege, each salvo a calculated strike against German momentum. The German offensive, now faltering, faced a relentless barrage of American ingenuity. Commanders, their intelligence outdated, underestimated the coordination of time on target and the lethality of airbursts. Infantry, expecting to find cover in trenches, were decimated by shrapnel from above. Panzer units, slowed by mud and craters, became targets for follow-up strikes. At Bastogne, a variable time fuse barrage halted a German push, forcing commanders to pause and regroup. The 101st Airborne, bolstered by these strikes, held their perimeter, turning Bastogne into a fortress of defiance. The United States Army's doctrine, emphasizing precision and adaptability, proved its worth. Fire direction centers, manned by exhausted crews, planned barrages with slide rules and meteorological data. Each salvo, synchronized within seconds, struck with devastating effect. The variable time fuse, a closely guarded secret, amplified the destruction, catching German forces unprepared. Their tactics, built for earlier campaigns, crumbled as airbursts disrupted formations and supply lines. The Ardennes, scarred by craters, bore witness to a new era of warfare, where technology outmatched raw numbers. The 101st Airborne stood firm, their lines unbroken by German assaults. American artillery, with its synchronized salvos and airburst fuses, chipped away at the enemy's will. Each barrage, guided by observers and computed with precision, reshaped the battlefield. Bastogne's defense, a testament to calculated destruction, set the stage for the final push. The German Fifth Panzer Army, its reserves dwindling, faced a relentless foe armed with fire and ingenuity. The forest, torn by shells, told a story of precision's triumph as American artillery paved the way for victory. The Ardennes, scarred by craters and littered with wreckage, fell largely quiet by late January 1945 as the German offensive collapsed. The 101st Airborne Division, bolstered by relentless artillery, had held Bastogne, turning it into a symbol of unyielding resistance. Shells, streaking at 1,550 to 2,800 feet per second, had shattered the Fifth Panzer Army's ambitions. Time on target and variable time fuses, wielded with precision, transformed American artillery into a decisive force. These innovations, born of calculation and ingenuity, broke German lines, forcing their withdrawal toward start lines and the West Wall. The battle's end marked a shift in warfare. Time on target, with its synchronized barrages, was codified in Allied and North Atlantic Treaty Organization artillery doctrine and influenced many post-war armies. Variable time fuses, proven in the Bulge, including around Bastogne, evolved into modern proximity munitions, shaping conflicts for decades. The United States Army's logistical might, with some battalions firing hundreds to over 1,000 rounds on peak days, set a benchmark for sustaining firepower. Engineers, quartermasters, and signalmen, working through sub-zero cold, ensured guns never fell silent. Their efforts, paired with technological leaps, turned Bastogne's defense into a case study of precision's power. German forces, their reserves spent, withdrew toward their start lines and the West Wall. Crossings of the Rhine would come months later. Panzer Lehr and 12th SS Panzer divisions, once formidable, withdrew after sustaining heavy losses from coordinated artillery, infantry, and anti-tank defenses. The Ardennes campaign, costing Germany thousands of men and machines, signaled their decline on the Western Front. American artillery, guided by forward observers and fire direction centers, had reshaped the battlefield, proving technology and logistics could turn the tide against local German advantages. The human cost lingered in the frozen forest. Artillerymen and observers, their hands scarred by cold and steel, carried the weight of Bastogne's stand. Their relentless work, loading 33-pound shells and relaying coordinates under fire, saved entire units. The United States Army's doctrine, emphasizing speed and calculation, forged a legacy of firepower that echoed beyond the war. The Ardennes, a crucible of destruction, bore witness to a new era where precision and logistics outmatched raw force. Bastogne's victory, etched in craters, stood as a testament to artillery's enduring impact.